Let's talk about the Irish potato famine. Before we get started, you should know that this whole lesson is about the importance of meiosis, which really means the importance of sex. Like, why is it important to go through meiosis to make your gametes, and why is it important to have make sure that everyone looks different? And a great story is that of the Irish potato famine, a very classic story of what's called a monoculture. So let's kind of go back in time a little bit. The Irish potato famine occurred in the mid 1800s, like 1845 was supposed to be the peak year, and the potatoes were all rotten. There was a disease that went through called blight, and blight killed all the potatoes, causing a quarter of that population, 25% of that population to starve. And that led to a lot of the Irish immigrating over to the U.S., and that kind of coincided with the U.S. going through the Industrial Revolution. If you recall, like the 1860s or so, that's the Civil War, that's the cotton gin, that's the steam engine. So it plays a really big role in our own American history. But more importantly, we get to talk about genetic diversity. So let's talk about these potatoes. Well, you should know that the potatoes were kind of a boon to the Irish. They were super nutritious. So there were a lot of agricultural historians who think that the potatoes did a lot for the world just because there was a lot of food for very little effort. And that led us to have a lot more time to kind of do more things, have more innovation. But in this case, the potatoes died because of the way they were planted. Well, let me explain. Usually, a potato will grow up, right? And then the grown-up potatoes will have flowers, and bees will go between the flowers. And then when those flowers get fertilized, right, that's basically the flowers having sex, the potatoes will grow some seeds, grow some pods. You collect those seeds, and then you plant those potatoes. That's a long process. That process creates a large diversity of potatoes. So some potatoes will be smaller and others were bigger. The Irish thought that they had a better way of planting potatoes. Instead of having the potatoes grow from seeds, make flowers, pollinate, grow seeds, that's a long process. They took one good potato, like the best potato they had, and they did not eat it. Instead, they cut it up into little bits, right? Because each eye, the little dimples in the potatoes, each eye has meristemic tissue. Meristemic meaning there's enough cells and tissues there that can grow into its own whole potato. Like meristemic means that those cells can be roots, those cells can be stems, right? So on that one potato, if you cut up the potato into little bits and you just shove those little bits into the dirt, you could grow potatoes faster. And better yet, you were cloning the best potato, like the biggest, most nutritious potato. So that's what the Irish did. They practiced this kind of monoculture cloning farming practice, and they were able to grow more potatoes faster. However, they were all the same potato. They were all clones. And when they were all clones, when one potato got sick by blight, they all got sick by blight. So that's the story, right? If they're all the same, then they all die very quickly. On the other hand, when all the potatoes are different, then maybe some of them would not have died by blight. And better yet, the ones that do survive, they'll make babies. So then the subsequent generations will survive diseases. You know, this goes beyond potatoes. We humans are very diverse. And there are many diseases, believe it or not, that that some of us are immune to. There are some humans out there that will never get malaria. There are some humans out there that will never get AIDS. There are well-documented cases of populations who have been exposed to HIV, but they don't get AIDS, right? Because we are so genetically diverse.